And next, it's my pleasure to invite the wonderful, the beautiful, and often unexpected Paul Dieppe, Nova Scholar and Emeritus Professor of Well-Being at the University of Exeter Medical School, to talk about a topic that we rarely discuss when we talk about the meaning of life, and that is death. So Paul is going to explore this ultimate question. Thank you so much, Paul, for taking this one on.
Well, thank you, Susan, I think, although trying to follow those speakers is an impossible task. So I'm very cross with you, really, for putting me on after those three. That is not fair. So there are indeed many different scientifically inexplicable phenomena that have been observed in relation to death. And I just want to mention four of them that are particularly well documented and particularly well researched. The first is called terminal lucidity and is a remarkable phenomenon where people with severe dementia appear to return to normal state of memory and consciousness just before they die. Very well documented, quite extraordinary. The second is the pre-death experiences where people just before they die talk about entering a new loving light world or meeting dead loved ones just before their own death. The third is near-death experiences where people who die, often of something like a cardiac arrest, have amazing experiences of another world full of love and light, or they observe everything that is happening to their body in a different place and can describe it very accurately afterwards. And the fourth are the so-called shared death experiences where one person is dying and they communicate with relatives far away, or there's persistent communication in some cases with a loved one after their death. And these things do very clearly challenge our materialistic, isolated view of the world. But having said that, one aspect, I think, of being human is that experience always trumps knowledge. So we can know things, but experience overtakes that and trumps it and makes us think completely differently. So I have actually experienced two of these phenomenon, both occurred when I was in a somewhat stressful situation, which may be relevant or not, I don't know. So I was being held hostage for a while in 1990, and I had both something that was quite close to a near-death experience, and I had a shared death experience. And bear with me, I'm just going to very briefly share those with you. So my nearly near-death experience occurred very soon after I was first taken off a plane that was trying to refuel in Kuwait when Iraq invaded Kuwait. And a small group of us were hustled out onto the tarmac by a couple of Iraqi soldiers carrying Kalashnikovs and lined us up to shoot us. And one person next to me said, "Oh my God, they're going to shoot us dead." And I agreed, and I suddenly realized that I was actually to be shot dead. And at that moment, I had the most extraordinary and wonderful experience I think I've ever had. I suddenly was aware that I was a part of something much, much bigger, something that was full of love and light and beauty, and I needn't worry about a thing because it was so much bigger and better and beautiful than anything I'd experienced. A so-called noetic experience, if you like. There's very many other terminologies for that type of experience. I have absolutely no idea how long it lasted. The next thing I knew, I was being shepherded onto an airport bus to take me to another building. Now, my shared death experience occurred a couple of months later when I was being held in a small bungalow in Kuwait docks with 6 other men. And I was trying to keep a diary. I'd found some paper and pencils in the bungalow and was trying to keep a diary of what was going on, and quietly writing on that one morning when I had a sudden overwhelming feeling of grief and sadness and a sense that my father was trying to contact me. It was a very bizarre experience. I stopped writing my diary. I never wrote in that diary again. And for that day and most of the next day, I felt absolutely awful. Now, following that, this was a long time ago. It was before we had things like the internet or ways of communicating. So we didn't know what was going on, and nobody at home knew what was happening to us. But I kept that diary. So when I got home 3 months later, I found out my father had indeed died, and he had indeed died on that exact day, pretty much at that exact time. Now, that is an experience that shook me quite a lot, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I'm one of a perhaps small but not inconsequential number of people who've had these experiences. So how do we deal with these things? And as I say, the experiences are much more powerful than the knowledge. So I think it does mean that it is impossible to maintain a purely materialistic view of the world, or adhere to the philosophy of people like Daniel Dennett, who say we're just isolated pieces of meat, and our brains produce our consciousness, and there's no more to it. And it's very depressing that that worldview, although challenged by everybody at this meeting, still has a lot of influence. And we need to change that clearly. But experiences like this make it completely impossible to persist with that view. Although, of course, I, as a doctor previously, had held that view. So the second thing is the consequences. So most people who've had a near-death experience or a shared death experience are profoundly changed by them. They are transformed in a way, as Leon described, transformation. And that happened to me too. Once I'd recovered, which took quite a long time, and processed what was going on, I moved away from biomedical sort of laboratory type stuff in my work. And with the help of many people and institutions, including this wonderful Nova Institute, was able to switch my research interest to caring and healing. So that was a true personal transformation. So death is the ultimate transformation. Thank you.